Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Thursday, January 22nd. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Last month, protests erupted in the country of Iran, followed by a heavy government crackdown.
The Iranian American community right now, I've just heard of 2 people so far who've lost friends and loved ones.
Thousands of miles away, the Iranian American community in the Central Valley waits for news from loved ones. We'll speak with one doctor who's keeping a close eye. But first, these news headlines. The Fresno City Attorney says he is pausing a wage theft investigation into Valley Children's Healthcare. That's because a separate wage theft case is still playing out in court. Fresno City Attorney Andrew Jans told the Fresno Bee that his probe into Valley Children's would have centered on hospital facilities located in Fresno. The hospital has faced numerous lawsuits in recent years by nurses who allege wage theft. And in recent years, the company was also rocked by a media scandal over high compensation paid to its CEO. Valley Children's Healthcare is a business sponsor of KVPR. Fresno County leaders are expanding a workforce program that allows public assistance recipients to earn a full-time job. The announcement about the program was made this week at a local manufacturing business. KVPR's Samantha Rangel has more.
Fresno County officials gathered at Pleasant Mattress in Fresno to highlight the program. It aims to help public welfare recipients obtain long-term employment. The program is part of what's known as New Employment Opportunities, or NEO. It connects residents with employers across many industries like construction. Training costs and wages are covered. Sonia Bouguet is the Fresno County Department of Social Services Director.
Over 70% actually end up in unsubsidized jobs. So that's really the key part of this. Isn't just that initial help and subsidy to the employers, but the fact that individuals and their families then find actual permanent jobs and sustain them that leads them to a path of self-sufficiency.
The partnership has helped place over 2,700 people into jobs so far, and the county plans to enroll another 700 residents into the program over these next 5 years. With KVPR News, I'm Samantha Rangel.
The Trump administration has filed a lawsuit challenging a California law requiring a 3,200-foot buffer zone between new oil and gas wells and community areas like schools and neighborhoods. This law was originally passed in 2022 as a way to protect people from the negative health effects associated with living near wells. Cassie Siegel is the director of the nonprofit Center for Biological Diversity's Climate Law Institute. She describes the lawsuit as senseless.
This law does so much to protect the air we breathe and the water we drink, to protect kids from these terrible toxic pollutants like benzene that cause cancer, cause asthma.
In a statement, federal officials say the law obstructs federal energy policies and is a burden to domestic energy development. They said they plan to seek a preliminary injunction to prevent its enforcement. The California Hospital Association is slamming what it says is a hasty proposal by the state to fill staff positions at psychiatric hospitals. The proposal requires these hospitals to fill vacant staff positions by the end of January. The Hospital Association says that is not enough time to vet and onboard employees, and it warns that some facilities could be forced to reduce the number of patients they can treat as a result. The proposal from California's Public Health Department is a response to a San Francisco Chronicle investigation. That investigation revealed systemic abuse and understaffing at for-profit psychiatric hospitals.
Support for Central Valley Daily comes from the members of KVPR. Join at $8 or more per month and access ad-free NPR podcasts through NPR Plus. Give now at kvpr.org/donate.
And now to our main story. Recent civil unrest in Iran has resulted in the deaths of thousands of protesters in just the last month. Demonstrators originally took to the streets to protest the current government as the country's currency plummeted in value. But then the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, turned the government's lethal force on its own people. Estimates of the number of people killed vary widely. A New York Times report released yesterday put the total death toll at 3,000. That's according to the Iranian state TV. CBS News reports that number is likely 4 times the amount. I also want to note that government leaders have cut off Iranians' access to phones and the internet. This has continued to suppress information being shared with the international community, including human rights groups. California is home to the largest Iranian diaspora in the world. And to understand how they're processing this current conflict, today we're speaking to Dr. Mehdi Ghajar. He's a local eye doctor in Fresno and a community advocate who was born in Iran. Dr. Ghajar begins by providing an overview of what sparked the current conflict.
Well, the current protest started just right before the new year, and it was started in Tehran with the bazaar market people coming out and protesting against the dire economic and unstable situation of the economy. And once they came out, then people started coming out all over the country in small cities and then in larger numbers in big cities. And essentially, you have a regime that's been holding its people hostage for about 48 years. Their very existence started with the burning down of a cinema, with these Islamists burning people down in a cinema in 1978. It was called Cinema Rex. And so essentially this regime has been ruling through extreme violence ever since then, and through always having a foreign enemy. The foreign enemy always having been America from the day they took the hostages in the Tehran embassy in 1979, to then having Iraq as the foreign enemy, and then Israel as the foreign enemy. And so they've always ruled through fear, intimidation, violence, and having a state of war with an external enemy. And these protests are basically, since 2000, I'll name it. There were the protests in the year 2000 through 2001, then 2009 through 2010, 2017, 2018, 2019, 22 to 23 with the Women Life Freedom, and then 2026. So the Iranian people have been protesting or desire to overthrow this regime for the last 3 or 4 cycles. So going back to this round of protest, and this pattern is not unusual. So what happens is initially people come out in protest, and there's some tolerance, even though they started killing about 50 to several hundred people within the first, 10 to 14 days. Then what happened was, with the backing of President Trump, where he said we're locked and ready and loaded, and we will support the protesters, then our Prince Reza Pahlavi, who's the son of the old Shah of Iran, came out and called for massive protest on Thursday and Friday. And he also said, he warned the people, he said, we know that they're going to cut out all the internet and the phone lines. They cut out everything to 85 million people. No phone, no internet. And then this so-called supreme leader came out and essentially threatened people. And he's done this before in previous cycles. In 2009, he did it. 2023, he did it. So with the complete information blackout and him coming out and saying that anybody who comes out is an instigator, is a rioter, that was a clue to all the military and police that now you have a free rein to kill.
So there's a history of this, and I appreciate the background because I think the uprising in the 1970s is sort of what a lot of people think about when we think of all the Iranians that came and settled in California. There's a long history of this sort of civil unrest in the country. With the media blackout, I understand you still have family there. Have you been able to speak with them?
I've only had one cousin who, after 14 days, was able to get internet through one of her coworkers. And I'm in touch with most of the Iranian American community in Fresno. I know hundreds of them. And we gather a protest and we talk. None of the people that I knew were able to get in touch with their family for over 10 days. Nobody. So imagine when we say 85 million people, absolute no access to the rest of the world, this is not an exaggeration. No one had access to their families. None of their parents, siblings were able to reach out to them until about maybe 3 or 4 days ago.
I'm wondering, as you speak about this in your own way, how you square maybe your love for your heritage and your community with what you're seeing today. How do you hold both of those? And has that led you to speak out, like that belief that things could be better?
We all know it can be better because we've seen what the 1960s and 70s were like. All the Iranian American community that you see today has some connection with education or prosperity that was given to us during the reign of the Shah and the period in which Iran was allies with America. And 50,000 Iranian students were studying in the United States, including at Fresno State, which many of the people that are in Fresno in the Central Valley trace their roots there. They either were those students or their family members were those students. So it was a golden era, there's no doubt. And all this talk about the dictatorship of the Shah and all that we know was designed by people and powers that wanted the Shah out. And what did they bring in its place? They brought this horrible theocratic dictatorship that's anti-American, anti-Israeli, that claims to speak on behalf of God and wants to create a Shia caliphate, one that's based purely on violence.
And before I let you go, Dr. Ghajar, with everything that's happening in Iran, I just think for a lot of folks here, it can all feel very distant. So from your perspective, why should people in the Valley feel concerned about what they're seeing happening in Iran? And just what would you say to people who maybe are not as educated on this topic as you?
Very good question, because I think there are probably American servicemen in the Central Valley who lost their lives or were killed by the bombs of this regime, the roadside bombs in Iraq and Afghanistan. Moreover, the Iranian American community right now, I've just heard of 2 people so far who've lost friends and loved ones. But as the media or internet blackout hopefully is lifted sometime, which we're not even sure if it will be lifted, more news of loved ones of your neighbors and friends in Central Valley is going to come out where their nephew was killed or their brother was killed or their nephew is held in detention. Now, one other really scary thing is that even if the United States does want to attack this regime and take out the heads of the regime, which the majority of Iranian people want that, including all my connections in Iran, people are just saying, when is he going to come take this regime out? Now, you were asking about connections with Central Valley. So not only will you have friends and coworkers or maybe your doctors who, God forbid, have lost family members, but we also have friends and relatives that are held prisoner by the regime right now. There's estimates about maybe 20,000 have been arrested. And what they're doing now, indirectly, they're threatening the American administration and saying that we will execute these people. If you hit us, we're going to do mass executions. So they're holding 85 million hostage, but they're holding 20,000 directly hostage at a threat of mass killings, again, more killings if the United States hits them. So that's really worrisome and scary. Not only have they done a genocide in a matter of several days where they've killed 12 to 20,000 people, but they may kill another 10 to 20,000 that are right now under arrest.
Dr. Mehdi Ghajar, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and for breaking down this issue.
Thank you very much.
And that is today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
How does AI even work? Where does creativity come from? What's the secret to living longer? TED Radio Hour explores the biggest questions with some of the world's greatest thinkers. They will surprise, challenge, and even change you. Listen to NPR's TED Radio Hour wherever you get your podcasts.